My name is Garrett Heisel, and I'm 44 years old. I came back here in 2006. I was here from 92 to 97, and then came back in 2006. Let's see, I came out when I was probably 23, yeah. About it. People were talking about AIDS, so that was in the 90s. That was in the early 90s. So we knew a lot more about HIV and AIDS in the 90s than people knew when I was going to college in the 80s as an undergraduate. I worked in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where you did your undergrad?
No, I lived in Chicago from 1990 to 1992, and I was first in banking there. I worked in a bank at Continental Bank for a year, and then I went to graduate school at Northwestern. Oh, let's see. By the 90s, people were much more savvy about the difference between it being just related to people who were gay. I think that by the 90s, there's a lot more research showing that it wasn't just gay men getting it, although the stigma between, or the stigma of the association between homosexual men and HIV/AIDS was pretty strong, whereas today I think it's much less. So you have to situate, for example, when the basketball player who, Magic Johnson, when Magic Johnson outed himself as having HIV, and what that really changed minds for a lot of people at the time. Because of HIV or AIDS?
So because with like that relation and then.
Oh, okay. Between being gay, not that I know of. No, because I wasn't. I was out as I was starting graduate school, starting my master's program, and you know, in most academic environments, being gay isn't such a strange thing, and it isn't. It wasn't stigmatized, and I think if anything, people back then, in the early 90s, they were supportive of people who were different, supportive of people if they were gay, but more they were just concerned that they would get HIV because the thought was that, and I think data was showing that more gay men were getting HIV than other populations. Well, I mean now, if I'm not mistaken, the largest group of people, subpopulation of people catching HIV and transmitting HIV are young people from, I think, 18 to 26, that age group, and that's across the board, both straight and gay. So high-risk behavior is high-risk behavior, and if you engage in high-risk behavior, whether you're doing it with someone of the same sex or not, you're exposing yourself to HIV. So there's a lot of straight people who do have HIV and who are not being tested, not aware of it. If anything, the AIDS crisis really, I think, educated the gay population about how important it was to have safe sex. But that focus on safe sex, I think, is past, and now a lot of young gay men, because HIV is treatable, HIV isn't curable, but because it's treatable, unfortunately, a lot of young people are throwing caution to the wind and not practicing safe sex. I didn't know as much about the case when it first came up, except for the fact that he became one of the people around whom many people lobbied in order to get funding for health care for people with HIV and AIDS. So the Ryan White Health Care Act is an important piece of legislation and needs to be continued to be supported because there's lots of people who can't afford the medications that they need. Well, I think on lots of fronts, I'd love to see people continue to do research and try to find ways to control the spread of HIV/AIDS. I think we need to focus a lot on populations that don't have the resources to control the spread of HIV/AIDS, in particular communities in Africa and in India and in China, where there's lots of lots of growth in the number of HIV/AIDS transmission. I'm also, like I said earlier, just really disturbed that the practice of safe sex isn't as important to many populations and many groups as it used to be, and it's really silly to think that you can just take a pill or take some medications and your life will be fine. So HIV isn't a big, awful thing, because the truth is that those medications, once you begin to take them, have all kinds of side effects, and they need to be followed very rigorously, and a lot of people just have no clue of what they're putting themselves at risk for. I think in schools and in families, I think that families need to talk openly about the risks of safe sex, and to not ignore that just because your child is straight, that they're just as much at risk for HIV and any other number of sexually transmitted diseases as a child who comes out as being gay. No, I don't think I've ever experienced someone, saying to me, "Oh, you're going to get AIDS because you're gay." I think I've definitely had been people had taunted me with names like faggot or queer boy or things like that. That I think is really unfortunate, but I'm the kind of person who looks at that and says that says a lot more about them than it does about me. Although the bullying of gay people is really frightening to me, and to see those kids who committed suicide because their orientation, I think, is just so tragic, so sad. But no specific, I can't remember any slurs. I've seen slurs written on walls, for example, that, gay means AIDS, or gay means you're going to die from AIDS, or all gay people are going to die for AIDS, and it's God's vengeance on queers. I've read those kinds of things on walls, or I read about it in the news, but it's never been directed to me.
Wow.
Yeah. There's people who believe that.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think it's really good. I think one of the things that most gay people suffer from is a lack of role models, and so to the extent that gay young people could see well-adjusted, happy, healthy gay and lesbian and transgender people in their lives, I think the easier it'll be for them to come out. But the suicides, like I said, are just terrible. And the campaigns, there's been controversies about the campaigns about it'll be okay. Because the truth is to come out is not easy. And people will get teased, and people will get taunted, and it's finding the right support systems to help those people get through those difficult things. But the truth is once you're through all that, life is a lot easier, and life does get a lot better. I would say that the hardest person to come out to is actually yourself. After that, it's pretty much downhill as far as outing yourself to people. It's hard to out yourself to your parents, but it's much harder to accept it yourself, I think. Oh, if you're gay, if you're questioning, I would just say that that's okay. That's a normal, natural thing to do, to question people you find attractive and think about that. I would encourage them to talk to adults who are safe and that will be advocates and mentors for them, and to not be ashamed of who they are. They might not be able to come out right now for any number of reasons, but that doesn't mean that they can't find people and seek out people who will value them as productive, wonderful human beings who have just as much right to be in school or to be in church as anybody else. There's some really great resources like Kaleidoscope here in Columbus, which is a youth center for gay and questioning youth. And there's all kinds of great programming. King Avenue United Methodist Church is another place. There's lots of really good programs for kids who want to explore their sexuality and find out who they really are. Or might not be, who knows. But at least ask about it, I guess.